U.S. President Donald Trump's upcoming state visit to China has been highly anticipated by observers on both sides, with experts saying that they expect Trump's first state visit to China to further consolidate bilateral ties and promote peace and prosperity in the region and beyond. Prior to the visit, CRI's New York correspondent Qianchen Meng sat down with Stephen Orlins, president of the National Committee on U.S.-China Relations, in New York City for an exclusive interview. During their conversation, Orlins explained his expectations for Trump's upcoming visit and his understanding of the current and future of U.S.-China relations. He said he hopes Trump will listen and learn from the Chinese side and work for significant outcomes for both countries.
President Donald Trump is now on his Asia tour, and he will be visiting China later this week. What would you expect from President Trump's first state visit to China?
Well, first of all, it's his first time in China, so I expect him to learn an awful lot about China. From his perspective, he's going to focus on North Korea and trade issues. Those are going to be far and away the two most important issues that he talks about. I think he's going to have a lot of time with President Xi. He's going to be accompanied by a number of advisors, but I expect him to learn a lot. We all know that President Trump is a very good listener, and he'll have the opportunity to listen to President Xi and other Chinese officials. Clearly, on the trade front, there are 29 business leaders going with President Trump. I would expect to see a number of deals signed. I'm especially heartened by the transaction which will increase American exports of crude oil to China by almost $10 billion a year over the next 12 years. For years, I have called on the Chinese to help build infrastructure in the United States which allows for U.S. crude and natural gas to be exported to China, because China is an importer of those things. The U.S. has surpluses now in those commodities, but doesn't really have the infrastructure which can allow us to export it. So that this kind of deal will be signed when President Trump is in China, I think is great. And that will have a material effect on the trade deficit. I think President Trump is wrong to focus on the bilateral trade deficit. You should focus on multilateral. In other words, what is China's total surplus? What is America's total deficit? But focusing on bilateral is it doesn't make a lot of economic sense. Having said that, the best way to reduce the bilateral deficit is through the export of major commodities, which in this case, oil would be 10 billion. If you did it in the natural gas area, that would be billions also annually. I know the administration is focusing on energy deals, and I expect there will be a number signed, and I hope there's some others signed. Obviously, aviation is important, and it's a very important export for the United States, and we very much hope that we see some more purchases of airplanes.
We can see that U.S.-China relations have been on the right track since the Mar-a-Lago meeting between President Xi Jinping and President Trump. So far, the two presidents have met twice, and they have been constantly making phone calls to exchange views on issues of common concern. So why do you think President Trump enjoys such a steady friendship with President Xi Jinping?
I think that first meeting was just extremely positive, and I think each appreciated the other's difficulties. It's not easy to run the United States, and it's not easy to run China. So I think he appreciated it, and they hit it off. It's very difficult to predict. I mean, President Trump, I think, has had more phone calls with President Xi than President Obama had in many, many years. And he's only 10 months into his administration. So I think that's terrific. I think the more that the U.S. president talks to the Chinese president, the more peaceful the world is and the better the U.S.-China relationship is. So I think it's positive. That this is the third time he's met President Xi during his presidency is terrific. I hope they meet once a quarter. It would be beneficial to both sides. I also hope that President Trump invites President Xi to come to the United States next year. I think it's important that we establish a regular rhythm of presidential visits, because when you don't talk face to face, it's very difficult to kind of reach agreement on a lot of things or to understand the other person's perspective. Phone calls are terrific, but being there face to face, being able to really have the conversation directly is extremely valuable, and I'm for more of these kinds of visits and as many phone calls as they possibly can do.
And that was Stephen Orlins, president of the National Committee on U.S.-China Relations, talking to CRI's Qian Shenming in New York City.
Everything in focus, all in one place. China Plus focuses on the Middle Kingdom, bringing you